There are over 2,000 people using my latest online Irish spelling and grammar checker. It's called GaelGram, and people are using it every day as kind of a habit to help improve their Irish writing. And that's also having a knock-on effect on their spoken Irish as well. Because using an online tool like GaelGram means that you get really quick and immediate feedback on the mistakes you make in Irish. And it means you get into the habit of being able to correct them yourself and learn from your mistakes automatically without embarrassing yourself in front of anyone else. And that's the big thing about writing in Irish. We all get a little bit afraid when we write something in Irish that someone's going to correct it immediately, that it contains mistakes. And the thing is, though, that there's actually never been a better time to write in Irish with confidence. I've been working in Irish language software tools for nearly 20 years now, and I can honestly say there's never been a better range of tools available to help us write in Irish. And what's fascinating now with GaelGram, which is this latest online tool I mentioned, is that I've been able to collect some anonymous data on the general categories of mistakes that people are making. So this is the first time that this kind of analytics data has been made available publicly, that we can actually track the number of mistakes made in different categories in a real world scenario where people are using this tool every day to write in Irish. So, of course, I'm not actually tracking the words people are writing. It's all anonymous, but I'm tracking the type of mistake that GaelGram is picking up. And the first big category is síneadh fadas, because we all leave out síneadh fada from time to time. It doesn't matter how fluent we are. If we're in a rush writing an email, we're going to leave a síneadh fada out easily. And the range can be, in the simplest thing like may with the síneadh fada left out turns into me in English, or there's trickier ones like Gordine as well, where, people often have to look up how many fathers Gordine has. I'm going to leave that for something for you to do if you don't know the answer. There's one. The really interesting thing, though, about the síneadh fada issue is how embarrassing it is when you leave the fada out and someone comes back and tells you about it. But it's such an easy mistake to make, especially on a mobile device or on a screen if we have the font small and we can't even see if it's there. Even if we are sure where it should be, we might miss it when we're typing, or we might, even if we're double checking what we've written, we might not see. Now, you might not see it's there because it's only like 1 pixel big on the screen. But what I want to do in this video is just give a few tips about how to avoid making that most common mistake that people make in Irish, how to avoid leaving the síneadh fadas out. So the first thing to remember, of course, is that you need to have your keyboard set up on your computer properly. This is the first step. Might seem obvious, but if you buy a computer abroad, or if you are abroad and writing in Irish, if you're outside Ireland, your keyboard might not be set up in the best way to write síneadh fada. It might actually take a number of keystrokes to get your síneadh fada right. So the simplest thing to do is on a Windows computer, go into your settings and your keyboard settings in particular, and pick the US International keyboard, because that will activate the Alt-G-R button, which is near the spacebar on your computer, and then you simply hold that down and you press the vowel and you'll get your síneadh fada. On a Mac, it's similar. You pick the Irish keyboard, so the keyboard for the country of Ireland, the Irish keyboard, and that will activate the Alt Option buttons on either side of your keyboard. I have one here, just checking that they're still there. But the important thing to remember on a Mac is that there's a recent bug in Microsoft Word, and you cannot pick the Irish Extended keyboard anymore on a Mac. You used to always be able to pick Irish Extended, and you have a few other extra features, but now you have to pick the Irish keyboard, because otherwise there's this weird glitch in Microsoft Word on a Mac where it'll think you're writing in Scots Gaelic. So you have to pick the Irish keyboard on a Mac. Then Thinking about mobile devices, and you probably know this already, you just hold the vowel and slide to get the síneadh fada, because when you hold the vowel, it'll pop up a little window with all the different types of characters, the character ar fad, agus pick doing count leis an síneadh fada. So you just slide across and pick the one with the síneadh fada. Now, on a mobile device, that's a little bit slow. It's intuitive, but it's a little bit slow. But there's a great app called Microsoft SwiftKey. Now, I've no affiliation with Microsoft at all, but I am a huge fan of this free app called SwiftKey because it'll put an extra keyboard on your phone for typing in Irish, and it will figure out if you're typing in Irish or typing in English. You don't have to tell it, and it'll, in most cases, put the síneadh fadas in for you. It'll guess what word you're trying to type, and it'll put them in. So it's kind of predictive texting with artificial intelligence just gone, off the scale. It's the most amazing thing because not only will it often predict the fadas correctly, it'll actually predict the next word in a sentence correctly and give you the top three most common words that follow your word. So, for example, if you type "gu," it'll suggest "rev" because it'll think you're probably going to be typing "Gurav Mahagut." You don't have to type that, but it only takes a couple of taps to get it right. And that also means that it's automatically putting in the síneadh fadas for you. So Microsoft SwiftKey is an amazing tool, and even if you're typing on a laptop or a desktop and you're not sure where a fada goes, you can just pull out your phone and Microsoft SwiftKey and put in what you think it is and see does Microsoft SwiftKey suggest any extra fadas, and then put that into your desktop computer. So that's the input piece, which makes it much quicker and much easier to actually type the síneadh fadas. But of course, then there's the piece about checking what you've typed and making sure there's no mistakes in it. So the first tool I'd mention, of course, is GaelSpell, which you've probably heard about. That's the first piece of software I published back 20 years ago, nearly now, with Kevin Scannell, and that's a spelling checker for Microsoft Word. It'll pick up most fadas, but not all, because there's a couple of limitations to how Microsoft Word does spell checking. So, for example, I mentioned earlier the word may. If you leave the fada off there, it'll turn into me in English, and Microsoft Word will assume you're typing in English and say that's fine. So with very short words, it won't actually put in the fadas. But with other words, like triu is one of my favorite examples. So triu, T-R-I-U, or T-R-I fada, U fada, is the correct spelling of that word. But if you do type just T-R-I-U and you hit the space bar, Microsoft Word with GaelSpell installed will put the síneadh fadas in for you. So that's a really powerful tool. And then there's other packages that I've written called Anois and GaelGram, which I mentioned earlier. So Anois is an Irish spelling and grammar checker. It checks exclusively Irish, so it will pick up on words like me, which are correct in English but not correct in Irish. And then GaelGram, of course, similarly will check exclusively in Irish, so that you can actually see where the síneadh fadas are missing, and it'll suggest corrections when it can, or simply flag that there's a síneadh fada missing, or it's a word it doesn't recognize. And what that means is, because you're getting that quick automatic feedback on your síneadh fadas, that you'll start to spot patterns in the ones you leave out. There's certain words like shintus, for example, that I type very quickly sometimes, and I often end up leaving one of the fadas out by accident. And I guess that the key thing about that is that it shouldn't be embarrassing that we use extra tools in Irish to check what we've written, because of course there's been a spell check in English for years and no one is embarrassed about using that. And even if we're fluent in a language, if we're in a hurry, if we're using a small screen and a small keyboard, or if we're just hitting the buttons very quickly, we're going to miss something. So there's no reason to be embarrassed by leaving out a síneadh fada, as long as we've made, as long as we're doing what we can to correct that. And I think that's one of the great things now about all these Irish language tools that are available online and in app form, is that it's really quite transformational. For the first time, we can actually start to write with great confidence in Irish. And these tools are so powerful. It's funny now. Your GaelSpell is actually mandatory in many Irish universities and third level courses. It's actually if you're studying Irish, you actually have to use GaelSpell on your computer. But then it's so good that there's now a movement in some of these colleges. They've realised how good it is that actually during your exams you have to turn it off. So I get a lot of emails regularly from students who want to turn GraceFill off and then turn it back on again after their exams. So it's amazing how powerful these tools can be and how habit forming it can be to actually write in Irish correctly, because once you're being corrected a couple of times automatically by the computer, you start to spot the pattern and you start to be notice that and be a bit more mindful of it the next time you're typing that word. So these online tools are wonderful because we don't now have to go and find someone with perfect Irish spelling or grammar to check what we're writing. We can actually tweet with confidence, or we can write our college assignment with confidence, or we can publish our official document with confidence. We can put together our lesson plan and have it up on the whiteboard in the classroom and not be worried that the principal will spot a mistake in it later on. So we can actually write in confidence with Irish, and that's the biggest mistake people make, is the síneadh fadas. The next biggest category of mistakes probably won't come as any surprise to you. It's séimhs agus urús. So the changes at the beginning of words. And that's a challenging one, but there are solutions to that as well. And lots of really powerful tools for that one as well, which I'll tell you about in my next video. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it helps you write with more confidence in Irish. So still going to garíonn sé leat scríobh le níos mó muín as Gaeilge, agus na chéad fís an eile dé mé fechant na hafrathe le túsfacham nos séimhú agus urú. Agus go dtí sin, chur peann le pór agus méir le méirchlár. Slán.